If each thought feels true just because it is loud, your mind can become your busiest source of unnecessary suffering. That is the opening idea behind Joseph's "Don't believe everything you think." The book is not saying that pain is fake or that emotions should be ignored. It is saying that a thought becomes dangerous when we give it authority before we examine it. The root cause of suffering in this book is the moment a thought is treated as reality. A comment from someone, a delayed reply, a tense meeting, or a private fear appears inside the mind. Instead of saying, "This is a thought," we often say, "This is what is happening." That mistake turns an inner event into an outer command. The first useful distinction is thought versus thinking. Thought is the raw inner material, images, warnings, memories, comparisons, and predictions. Thinking is the deliberate act of checking those materials. Thought says, "React now." Thinking asks, "What do I know? What am I assuming? And what action would actually help?" Imagine a phone message arrives while you are already tense. What would you do first? The actual result is different when you pause before replying. The message becomes information instead of command. The 3 principles of the book can be translated into a simple working method. First, notice the thought without merging with it. Second, pause long enough to let the body stop treating the thought as emergency. Third, choose from clarity rather than from the first emotional surge. This is not passivity, it is disciplined response. Suppose a deadline appears and your chest tightens. Would you treat the tightness as proof? The answer is no. The result is clearer when urgency is tested against facts. Fear and urgency are central because they make thoughts feel more reliable than they are. When fear enters, the mind often calls speed wisdom. It says that delay is danger and that pressure is proof. Correction is proportion. Fear may contain information, but fear does not deserve automatic control. Picture a goal that feels necessary because failure would threaten your identity. What do you expect from that pressure? The result is usually more effort with less peace. The book's discussion of goals matters because ambition can hide anxiety. A person can chase a good outcome from a frightened identity. In that mode, every delay feels like personal failure, and every comparison becomes evidence of inadequacy. The healthier version is not laziness. It is effort guided by intention rather than panic. Unconditional love and creation are presented as a quieter baseline for action. Love here does not mean accepting poor behavior or becoming passive. It means reducing the need to defend an identity in every interaction. When the self is less threatened, the person can respond with more honesty, firmness, and care. Intuition and non-thinking are also treated carefully. The book does not promote impulse. It suggests that insight is easier to hear when mental noise has settled. A calmer mind can still use reason, but reason no longer has to fight through a crowd of urgent stories before it can work. Imagine a room where praise, authority, and social proof all point in one direction. Would most people call that a free choice? The result is safer when the cue is named before the decision. Everyday practice is where the book becomes useful. Before a reply, name the thought. Before a purchase, test the urgency. Before a relationship conflict, check whether you are defending a wound or answering the present moment. Before a goal decision, ask whether the action serves values or only protects image. Suppose the same thought returns every morning and says you are behind. What happens next if you believe it instantly? The result is a day ruled by defense instead of intention. Scene transitions move from diagnosis to principle, then to practice. The viewer first sees how thought becomes suffering, then how thinking reclaims authority, then how the pause works under real pressure. That structure prevents the book from becoming vague motivation. The recurring correction in this book is not to think less, but to think from a cleaner source. When urgency is loud, the strongest move is usually a short pause, a narrowed question, and then a tested response. That is the practical takeaway. Final meaning: thoughts are not enemies, but they are not rulers. Freedom is the ability to let a thought appear without instantly giving it the steering wheel. If you can notice, test, and choose, then your mind becomes a tool again instead of a prison. There is also a quiet ethical layer in the book. When a person stops believing every thought, they do not become careless with other people. They often become more responsible because they are less busy defending an imagined threat. A defensive thought can turn a normal disagreement into a courtroom. A steadier mind can still disagree, still set a boundary, and still say no, but it does not need to punish the other person just to feel safe. This matters in relationships because many conflicts are not caused only by what was said. They are caused by the speed with which the mind explains what was said. One sentence becomes disrespect. One delay becomes rejection. One mistake becomes proof that nothing changes. This framework asks us to slow the explanation before we strengthen the emotion around it. The relationship may still need a hard conversation, but the conversation can begin from reality rather than from a completed mental verdict. The same rule applies to work. Pressure often arrives wearing practical clothing. A manager needs a faster result, a client wants an answer, a group expects confidence, and the mind decides that panic is the cost of being useful. But panic is not professionalism. Clear action can be urgent without being internally chaotic. The book's value is that it separates speed from suffering. Sometimes fast action is required, automatic self-attack is not. The book is also useful because it does not require a perfect lifestyle before practice begins. You can use the method in small moments, before opening an email, before sending a reply, before saying yes to an invitation, before deciding that a bad morning predicts the whole day. Each small pause becomes evidence that thought can be noticed without being obeyed. The caution is that the method must not become another performance demand. If someone turns every thought into a test they must pass perfectly, the practice itself becomes another anxious identity. The healthier posture is gentle repetition. Notice what you can, correct what you can, and return when you forget. The goal is not to win a private war against the mind. The goal is to stop giving unexamined thoughts the power to start wars inside ordinary life. That is why the book belongs more to daily discipline than to inspirational entertainment. It is not asking the viewer to adopt a slogan. It is asking for a repeated mental habit. Separate the thought from the thinker, let the body settle, then make the next decision from a wider field of information. When that happens, many problems are still real, but they are smaller than the story that fear was preparing. In the end, the book's usefulness depends on practice. Reading it once may give language. Applying it repeatedly gives freedom. The person who can pause before believing the first inner sentence has already changed the direction of the day.